And I know we have several of these, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to get to some of the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Lisa Harlan, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent here for Greater Albany. And we have some special guests here with us today who are going to help out. The first of which I would want to introduce, perhaps Melissa, I'm not sure if you already have, but David Hasmin will be helping us out, and David works at the Welcome Center in Albany for the school district and will be helping us with translation and interpretation.
And Assistant Superintendent Hart, we have not seen the need. We've entered that in the chat. So if you wish to continue in English, we can check in and see as we are needed for the interpretation services.
Perfect. And just let me know, David, please interrupt me and let me know, and I'll make sure that we do that. We also, of course, have our superintendent, Melissa Goff, with us on the call, waving there. We have our elementary director, Sue Luthra, who's also with us, and our special programs director, Ryan Mattingly, as well, I see there at the top. And so we
also have our federal programs director, Heather Husefka, here.
She just popped in, I saw her. So our hope really is to be able to provide an opportunity for parents, specifically at the elementary level, to ask some questions and to get some updated information. When we have held these parent forums in weeks past, one of the suggestions was it would be really great if we could have parent forums that were targeted specifically at age levels, because the questions were so specific sometimes to a grade level or for elementary, for example. So that's what we're doing tonight. We have elementary directly followed by middle, followed by high school, in an effort just to spend some time with parents to get some of their questions answered that are specific to their child, perhaps at their grade level. So we will just go ahead. If you have any questions, please use the chat for that. I will go through and answer the questions as quickly as I can, and have help from other staff to be able to do that as well. Some just information to make sure everybody has in review in terms of technology. We will have Chrome pads for K-1 students and Chromebooks for students in 2 through 12. And I know one of the questions that we've had is in regards to Chrome pads, in terms of will they get here on time and what will that look like for the start of school. And so for students in grades kinder and first grade, we'll be doing school start September 14th, but for K-1 we'll do a slow start, which will entail your student's teacher reaching out to you to schedule a time to have you come in, get the technology, give parents passwords, meet the student, do a little kind of assessment of where they're at and their skills and what you're worried about, kind of a little bit more typical of what we might see, although very different in terms of just some one-on-one conversation, but also to enable parents to get the technology, to get some passwords, and to get some help and instruction in how that will be used. And so that will happen the week of September 14th with parents and teachers, and for grades kinder and first.
And I think I'll just go ahead and get us started, Lisa, by sharing some of the questions. And I feel like I can be a great director of questions to the right people, rather than responder to questions. So we have a couple questions regarding what does a typical school day, what is it going to look like at elementary? Do we have an idea of that yet? And I know we have some elementary principals here. I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask Sue Luthra instead to go ahead and share that info.
Good evening. And if anybody wants to, if any principals want to chime in, feel free. So what we'll do, K-5 actually, for kindergarten through 5th, for any model, the hybrid or the virtual interactive at home. There'll be times where the students check in. They'll be in the morning at a specific time. You'll have a schedule. They'll check in, say 9 o'clock. I don't have the exact time in front of me. 9 o'clock, they'll do about 30 minutes of work with their teacher, and then they'll have the next 30 minutes that they'll do, or to an hour, that they'll do some things online or virtually, watch a video with a story, that kind of thing. And then they'll check back in for math. They'll have an hour-long break for lunch, because we know some families will want to do something else at lunch, take a break, and then there'll be another check-in at the end of the day. So there'll be at least three times a day where they'll check in with the teachers. The schedule, so if you're a kindergarten parent, and you have, this question came up today, you have kindergarten twins, they will come, the schedule will be the same for all the kindergartens in the school. So this check-ins will be very consistent, and they'll be able to get on their Chrome pad for K2 or K1 and their Chromebook for 2 through 5, check in, meet with the teacher, meet with their class. Between their full class lessons, there might be some small group reading instruction, ELD, special ed classes, that kind of activity between classes.
Thank you. And then as a follow-up to that, more specifically around the bilingual program at South Shore for dual immersion, what might that look like for our young kids?
It will look similar. That schedule is a little more challenging. They're actually still working on it, and we're trying to make sure that we get as many bilingual teachers in the classroom, because typically we have a lot of students who change from teacher to teacher to get English or Spanish, but we're trying to switch that up a little bit so we have as many bilinguals teachers, so the kids aren't switching back and forth. So we're working on a schedule for them, but it'll be similar. They'll check in with the teacher, they'll have some time on their own, there'll be a specific check-in time. So it'll be similar, and we're trying to get bilingual teachers so they won't switch back and forth so often.
Awesome.
Can I add to that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is Marcy. My internet is not that great right now, so that's why my camera is off. But in addition to that, there will be supports for both the Spanish and the English language development coming from our teachers. And like Sue said, the schedule that we're creating is to ensure that students are supported in both language, and growth happens in both languages.
Thank you so much. Marcy Beltran, she is the principal there at South Shore, so that you can't see her. She would be a familiar face to those of you who are at South Shore. There are a couple technical questions I think I can handle, which is computer support for parents who purchased a Chromebook. Yes, so we are organizing right now computer support for all parents who think that they need some of the technical support around Chromebooks. We also understand that if you purchase a Chromebook at home that you're going to be using with your student, that you still may need the same amount of support, of course, as someone who is checking out a Chromebook. So we definitely are working on that plan right now on how to provide you a lot of really visual videos that you can watch, etc., to help you with supporting your kids. A question about trying to keep students who are on the interactive model grouped with other kids from their home school. Yeah, we will be making efforts to do that where we're able to do that. So, but we just know, but we can't make promises because we know that we don't have even numbers at each grade level from each school where that will be simple for us to do. So just recognize we're going to do the best that we can, but we won't necessarily be able to group your child solely with children from their own school. Certainly won't be solely children from your own school. Next question around special education and the new ODE guidelines. Ryan, are there any changes in the approach that we're taking, or do we know what our next steps are there?
I would add on to that, just as I'm scrolling through the chat, just some questions around service delivery, and then some concerns around special education students accessing, you know, how are they going to be able to, if I have concerns, my child is going to access education online. Theme.
Oh, there it is. Did you jump
Sure.
off there? Did you hear that question?
I did. Thank you. I was here. I was moving locations, but I was listening the whole time. So special education, the current rule, as we understand it, for in-person doesn't allow us to provide special education services only through that model. So we're still trying to figure out how to use that time to maximize students' ability to access their services that they need and to facilitate the additional services that would need to happen in the home. So that guidance just came out. We haven't fully fleshed that out yet. We're still sort of working through that, but when we can, we will do in person. And there is going to be some aspect of that that's going to be necessary to get those things set up. But the IEP team is going to drive the process, and so some parents are going to want more in person, some parents aren't, and so those IEP teams are going to have the flexibility and have the continuum of services to make those decisions that work as best as we can for individual families.
And then just a follow-up on special ed students receiving their interventions at home. How will that look this fall?
Yeah, so it will depend, right? For example, speech services, we're going to buy a speech therapy platform. We're going to try to provide high quality speech teletherapy as much as possible. We know that's a proven way to do speech. We know it's effective, and we have a lot of faith in our ability to do that. Other more unusual or rare therapies that may need to be done differently or in person, or we may need to find ways to get those done. So special needs is a wide range of things, and it's hard to answer globally. But again, you're welcome to email me specific questions about specific IEPs. But I can tell you, case managers will be reaching out to families in the next probably within a week and a half or so with more specifics about how that IEP will run for those specific students.
We've got a question from Morgan about Chrome pads and about whether kindergarten and first graders need to go to the technology pickup. If you just had a K or first grader, do you want to answer that, Lisa? I
did in the chat.
Oh, you're so good. Answered in the chat. Please look at the chat. But the answer to that is, if those are your only students, no, unless we have a surprise and those come in early. And hopefully our answer is aligned. So a question, Lisa, what happens for students whose parents can't work with the times that are given? This parent works late, so early can't work, and we know that that's been questions that we've heard from other parents as well.
So one of the things that we're working on is we'd like for students to be able to check in daily with their teachers and their work. For students in elementary, they'll be using two platforms. One is Seesaw for the younger grades, and one is Canvas. So parents and students will be able to see the work that is being done and the work that needs to be done in terms of what's done at home. We do have the ability to record and make available for students some of the lessons, but again, kind of that real-time instruction to be able to listen to and watch a lesson and then ask a question won't be there if you're just watching a recorded lesson. But those are things that will be available.
Sue, this question is about if you have a child, will students be going back and learning what they missed at the end of their last grade level? How will we make sure that students have the skills they need? What will that look
like? So what we do is we call it accelerated learning. So teachers really assess where kids are, and we have the standards for the next grade level, but they know they'll learn where they are, and then they'll supplement the lessons to help catch them up. Remembering that all students miss the same amount, but our job is and they missed a few months of school, so our job is to catch them up. But teachers will be assessing. We're right now working on, during the summer, they've been working on curriculum, so they know what wasn't taught last year in the grade level below and what needs to be brought in from the grade level below. So they're already working on that. They've been working on that throughout the summer to get, so teachers know kind of where to start planning. So they'll be doing some catch up and teaching the same at the same grade level at the same time. So we have a great plan. We've been working with a couple different education companies to help us through this process.
Great. Thank you. So we also have a question from Liz asking about what if there are two working parents in the home, are those students then expected to do online only school, and how will this work with families who have two working parents? And I can take that quickly. So it's going to be a challenge, and the pandemic has created this situation where it is going to just simply be a challenge for those families whose parents and guardians are needing to work, and those work hours are at the same time that the school day is. What I can tell you is every single lesson that is being taught by a staff member is being recorded as well. So students, the student day can be adjusted so that the students are actually accessing that lesson again when parents are home and available, if the parent is needing to better understand the concept of what was being covered in the first place, or can watch it with their parent at the time that works. We're trying very hard to provide the tools that are needed for your child to engage as independently as possible, and yet we also recognize that this is going to be really difficult. We have different models that are happening across the school district. I know that some of our local partners who are working with students are looking at ways to have students work. So when they're at the YMCA or when they're at the Boys and Girls Club, that students are actually engaging in learning during the scheduled time period if they're at those sites receiving childcare. I believe that a lot of childcare providers are going to be looking at doing that. We are going to do the best that we can to support you, and I don't have an answer for you that is one that will solve the challenges before you. So what we're trying to do is make things as supportive as possible in an environment where we are unable to have your child in person, and it's really a struggle. Heather?
Hi, I just want to add that we do have one of our teacher leaders acting as a liaison with the community groups, LBCC, regarding the community response to childcare support. And soon there should be some good information out. LBCC has a process where they can help parents locate childcare that works for them. It's a bit of a program. They have their fingers in what's going in a lot. And so we are pulling that information together to be able to get out so parents know that is a resource for them. Instead of trying to just try and figure out themselves, we are trying to pull those key people together that can help parents within their specific situations, knowing the options that are open, and then continue to work. They're going to work with community partners on how we can grow as many childcare options as possible.
Thank you. There's a question about kind of timing for when parents will receive the schedule for their students and how to access the information for their students. Sue, you might be able to give a ballpark of that.
Yes, sorry, I was typing in the answer to somebody's question.
Okay.
Yeah, so teachers haven't actually received those yet. Principal, we just finished those up today. So it will be just a bit before parents and teachers get the schedule. We can send out maybe the specific time. So it won't be next week.
Okay. And then there are questions around taking attendance and the online check-ins, and how will that work for students who maybe 2 days a week need to be with their parent away from the synchronous learning times? Will students still be able to be marked present if they're getting on later in the day to do the work?
And I answered that one in the chat, but yes, attendance is taken daily, and if they're not able to live, then just a check-in with their teacher. But that attendance requirement will be true for all schools in the state K-12, and we'll work with families so they don't have to check in hourly, and we're not going to be marking students tardy, but essentially did they access their education that day.
Thank you. There's a question about, and I'm so sorry, Lisa, I'm trying to scroll down to see if you've already answered or not, but there's a question about free and reduced breakfast for kids who typically qualify for free and reduced breakfast. And so we'll be using the format similar to what we did in the spring, which is students who qualify for those services will be receiving breakfast and lunch together in sacks for the next day or the next 2 days, depending on the distribution cycle. We're working right now with nutrition services around what those distribution sites will be. They are working with the state of Oregon, who's working with the federal government to try and expand who we can offer meals to. Last spring, that expansion was for any child ages 0 to 18, which we felt was appropriate and extremely helpful. We're still advocating for that, and we're waiting to hear more information on that. So once that gets once that information gets solidified, then we'll be able to give you guys more information regarding that. So I answered teacher interaction will be recorded so that instruction can be watched later. There will also be independent work for students. Students are still going to have access to learning tools that are not computer-based. So your children will not just be doing work that's needing a screen all the time. They won't be on a screen. I mean, they will be on a screen, but not all the time.
So I'm scrolling down. I think we're at kind of two places. One is for Ryan, and that is there is a question in regards to eligibility for a kinder student. How does one go through getting an incoming kinder onto an IEP for speech therapy? I'll let you go ahead and answer that, and then I'll take the next question.
Yeah, sure. So the evaluation process actually isn't really much different in practical terms, whether we were doing all in person or whether we're doing virtual. If there were concerns about speech or other disability related needs for a student we hadn't had before, we would get them into class, we would do observations, we would see how they were performing, we would take information from the doctor, we would try different things to see if it made a difference, and then we would meet as a team and decide whether additional evaluation was needed, and we will still do that. So that process will still be in place. We are still confident in our ability to monitor how students are doing, and our evaluation processes will still be intact too. So the process won't be any functionally different than it normally would be. And in a normal physical situation, you wouldn't come in and start with an IEP when you hadn't had one previously either. And so that's also still true. I think there's a similar 504 question a little further down the line, and the answer is the same.
If you have a first grader who received a Chromebook last year, yes, please come in when we are distributing Chromebooks and just drop that off for us, and you will get a Chrome pad for your first grader. So that's astute, and thank you for asking that question. Students, just so you do know, students will be having live time with their teachers. It will not be pre-recorded time with their teachers, though they may have some lessons where they're engaged in pre-recorded lessons. Teachers have a schedule where they are live in front of students every single day. So your kids will be developing a relationship, and their teacher will know who they are. Will we have the meeting via Zoom in Espanol for parents that need it? So we are continuing to ask in the chat regarding whether or not parents need or interpretation. So if there is someone who needs it, we'll ask it again. And we do have interpretation translation services here so that we can do it at the same time. And we have had Zoom meetings in Spanish for parents that need it as well.
One question that I see kind of pop up, and I'll toss this one to Sue, is around, and so just to be clear, students will do some lesson with their teacher live, and then they will kind of get off the computer and then do some work on their own and check back in. But one of the questions is, when they're doing work on their own, do parents need access to a printer? Will they be printing out kind of worksheets, or will a workbook come home? With the additional work that's not online, what can parents expect, and what will that extra work look like, and do they need access to a printer?
They might need access to a printer, but a lot of it will just be on paper, or a lot of it will just be virtual. They'll be able to answer right online on the computer, do their work with each other, just like you do in a Google Doc. They'll fill out it, like if they're writing, they'll write it in Google Docs and submit it to the teacher, and the teacher will be able to see it. So there'll be a combination. As far as workbooks, it won't be anything like last year. Last year was distance learning, so it's not anything like that. It'll be teacher prepared materials. We have books online that they'll be reading, so they'll have a virtual library that they'll read for books. So there'll be a combination. There won't be a lot of printing.
Okay. This one from Sarah: can you make those lunches any better tasting at all? They were okay, but I feel like they could be better. That is something we can certainly look into and figure out. So I appreciate that for sure. But I have no solid answer right now, but I think that's something we could work on. We had questions about, and answered by Sue Luthra in the chat about, you know, when we're able to go face-to-face at that point, if we're uncomfortable with it, how difficult would it be to just change to the interactive, the K-12 interactive? And does that mean they'll transfer classes and teachers? It may mean a different teacher, but there will be the ability to do that. Another question about volunteering virtually. We are not in the place right now where we have kind of that organized and or set up. Would there be the ability to conduct, you know, art lessons or to volunteer virtually to walk kids through a project or something? I think absolutely we could have those abilities, especially I think on Wednesdays. And something we'd be open to. We just have not organized kind of what that would look like and how to volunteer virtually yet. So that's a great idea, Sarah. Thank you for that.
Did we address the question about community partners handling childcare for kids with special needs? I don't think we did. And actually, Ryan and I were just talking about this today, and we recognize that, as Ryan was saying, students with special needs, those needs are very different from each other, and so we can't create a single solution for the large variety of needs that kids might have, but we do know there's going to be multiple approaches to trying to provide supports. Some of those supports may come from the district, some of those supports may come from community members or parents who want to create a learning pod for students who have similar needs that their own child has, that then we as district staff would be able to support differently. It is going to take the group of us to figure out the solution. And we do know that there are resources coming through the county task force. They have $1 million that they are distributing via grants due August 20th. That was in the paper today. I believe by the end of this week, they'll have the application available. And so if you are in a situation where you're looking at providing opportunities for students, including enrichment activities, but other support activities for students as well, you can look into that application and potentially apply for that. There are also, I know that United Way has come together to try and find ways to support unique situations for students. And students with special needs is one of those areas of specific service that Ryan and I are talking about how can we meet that, and Lisa and Sue as well. But I just happened to have a meeting with Ryan today on a different thing. So please know that we are looking at that and seeing how we might be able to help, or at least be able to let you know where some opportunities are.
Okay, just continuing down. Let me see. So a question around, well, first an acknowledgement. Sarah saying it's really hard to cook all the meals, clean up, do school and work for all of us working parents. And slow clap from me in my, absolutely. Yes, it is for sure. Another question around, you know, there's no way one of my kiddos can be on live meetings. Then is there a daily email that I email saying due to work hours? And I would let you know that the platform that we'll be using, Seesaw or Canvas, will allow for teachers to be able to see that the work for that day that has been done and accessed kind of by the student. And so there wouldn't necessarily be a need for a daily email, although I would absolutely encourage you to talk with your teacher to say, hey, this isn't going to work for us, so this is what it's going to look like. You know, we'll watch the recorded lessons at night and work on some of these things, but they'll be able to see how much a student does and progresses in those platforms. The next question is around kindergarten interviews this year, and then also online being 5 days a week. Sue, do you want to answer how will kindergarten interviews work, and will online school be all 5 days?
So for kindergarten interviews, you will get a call for kindergarten and first grade interviews, actually it'll be the same. You'll get a call from the classroom teacher just saying, welcome, I'm your classroom teacher, and they'll set up a time. If you are uncomfortable going in and doing it one-on-one, they can do it virtually, but the one-on-one you'll be able to hopefully pick up your Chrome pad and get passwords and all of that, meet the teacher, do a little assessment to see where they are. So the teachers will set up that appointment with you. We won't have it in small groups of kids. It will just be one student, one teacher, one parent type group. I've seen a lot of questions about how will we find out who the teacher is. So I'm going to answer that at the same time. So I've actually have a big text group going here with all the principals right now. And the decision was just made that teachers will call you and introduce themselves and welcome you to the classroom. So you'll get to talk to the teachers right at the beginning to find out who the teacher is. So we just think that would be the best way to do it.
So we have a question about will the school district be saving money by not having the physical school operating? And the one would think we'd be able to save money. Unfortunately, we're still operating all of our schools, so we still will have staff within our school buildings, and the schools themselves will continue to operate. When we come back to a hybrid model, if you remember that kindergarten, first grade, second graders going 4 days a week, how we afford that that model is actually investing additional resources into that model to be able to afford more days for K2. So we don't have extra compensation in order to divide out to parents. But the real question is, we need help because we're going to need to miss a day a week of work, or we're going to need to work shorter hours. And there is actually, and maybe Andrew, I think he's on the call, could put it in the post, in the chat. There is a resource from the state that is available to help with families who make $60,000 less a year and have 2 children. That's the average kind of how that works. You would qualify for an offset for childcare. And so we have been sending that out. We'll send it out again with our updates to families. I think it was in this week's update. It may have been last week's, but I think it was this week. We'll continue to send that out to you. And we encourage you to pursue those resources that are available to you as well. And if you need help filling those out, David and the rest of the team from the Welcome Center would be happy to help you fill that out. They're extremely helpful to our families in many regards, not only that one.
And I would point out, in terms of resource saving, it's actually been the opposite. It's been much more expensive because we have 9,400 students and are suddenly buying technology for students so that they can go one-on-one, and connectivity and virtual curriculum and platforms that we didn't have before. And so it's actually quite the opposite for the school district. The next question was around just scheduled, kind of how many scheduled virtual meeting times where there'll be for each grade level. So the question came up for 4th grade, and then it came up again for 2nd grade. And so the time will be less the younger they are. So it's around kind of 2 hours of screen time a day for kinder, and then it grows as they get older. And it's several times throughout the day. Again, about 3 times, because they'll get on with their teacher, have a lesson, have an activity, and then do some work on their own and kind of go back and forth in that way. And we will get schedules out, and we have some available that are in kind of just general terms, but we have teachers and teacher teams and principals working on them pretty specifically in terms of what we call synchronous time, which is, hey, I have to be on with my class and my teacher, and that's an opportunity for me to interact with them. And then asynchronous time, which is work that I can do on my own, kind of at my own time. And we'll have those go out so families can know what to expect in terms of who should be logging in at what time. We have, nope, I think we answered that in terms of teachers. Will teachers be shuffled around? How do we find out? Yes, we will be reassigning some teachers based on who's going online to Albany Online, which is our kind of fully online program, K-12, that is its own program. And then our K-12 Interactive, which is parents who have said, yep, you know, we're going to use the same curriculum as our elementary school and the GAPS curriculum, but we don't intend to be in person at all this year. And then of course our hybrid model, which we're starting virtually. And so there will be some, and again, your teacher will reach out and introduce themselves so you know who your child's teacher will be for this year. But there will be some reassignments of teachers just based on those 3 models. The next question of September 14th, the start date for all K-5, that is the start of school. But remember, for kinder and first grade students, they'll be having some technology pickup time and some time for teachers and parents to pick up technology, get the password for kids, do some assessments, see where kiddos are at. So it's a slow start for our youngest students. Some questions about reading and writing, kind of not all virtually, and it won't be. One of the programs we'll use there will be some virtual components, and then there will be paper pencil, which gets to the school supply list questions. We have them, and those will go out. It's a very different list than it typically is. But the program we have and will use is called Handwriting Without Tears. And there will be a virtual component, and there will be obviously a paper pencil component, especially for our youngest kiddos learning how to write and read.
If you are not getting any emails from the district, we have an incoming kindergartner here, and if you're not getting those emails, I need to look into how we're getting our incoming kindergartners on our listserv. So that would be our error, likely not yours, if you already got the confirmation that you're registered. So let me look into that, Melissa. And meanwhile, you can just email communications, and we'll make sure to get your name. We'll make sure to get your name added, but we don't want to miss your peers either. So.
We had several questions just around things being available in print if they needed to, and Sue answered that in the chat, but just so that everyone, if you're not following the chat, teachers can send home packets if they expect something to be print or handwriting practice, to make sure that that is available. I am scrolling through, trying not to repeat things. So do we, this is a great question. Will we have to learn or know how to operate kind of multiple sites or apps, or will it be all online? Will it be through one platform? So I will tell you that we will have 2 main ones for elementary. One is for younger students called Seesaw, and one is for intermediate students called Canvas, and they're platforms that students will access their content and curriculum and activities. We will have instruction not only for students, but also for parents in the form of tutorials that you'll be able to watch and read and then access at any time should you need it. Because if you're like me at all, I can like listen and read, I'm like, got it. And then when I have to go do it the first time, or most of it, it's the second time, I'm like, wait a second, I think I did this before. You can watch it again. Just to kind of refresh your memory on how to do that. But those will be available again for students and for parents so that they know how to navigate the things that they need to navigate. They're pretty, and I say this, they're pretty intuitive, but I think that's more true, I think sometimes for students than it is for adults, that I include myself in that. But we will have basically training and tutorials that are available to be able to help do that. This is a great question from Donna for Sue. So I don't know that we'll have an answer, but we can say, hey, that's a great idea. We'll, email parents out, which is, can we be notified of the day that teachers call so that we'll answer an unknown number or maybe a number that we don't recognize? So that is a great suggestion, just to email folks out to expect a teacher call in these 2 days, so that if you see an unknown number that you're more inclined to answer it, to know it's your student's teacher.
Yeah, we can work on that. Plus, in our little principal group right now, we're talking about, we might have some virtual, like meet the teacher night, so the whole class can meet the teacher at the same time, kind of like open house, but a virtual open house with the classroom teacher. A notification from the school through school messenger that that you will be getting calls about who the teacher is.
A question from Christy in terms of how much bandwidth will this all take? In terms of I still have to work from home. Will there be enough for my student to get on and for me to work from home? That's a great question. And I think it depends, but I'm not sure because technology is not my forte, on the internet speed that you have at home. But I know that we have many families who, not only in the spring, but over kind of the summer too, have students who are on and parents who are on working from home. And so I don't think that will be an issue. Although I will let you know that through the district, we have strengthened the infrastructure that we have in terms of bandwidth to prepare for the fact that we will have all of these kiddos kind of logging in. We don't anticipate that that should be an issue. And we've been working not only locally, but within the state with internet service providers to ensure that we have not only coverage in our communities, but the capacity for students and families to be able to access the internet free or at very low cost to make sure that everyone has access. Katie has a question. During independent work time, will teachers be available for questions if needed? And I would tell you that maybe sometimes yes and sometimes no, because what they'll be doing is they might be working with a small group of students during that time who need more help. And when you get back together after you do your independent work, there'll be a chance to be able to ask questions, say, how did that go? What was hard? What was easy? What are you still confused about? A question about, Sue, will we be using Class Dojo for communications with teachers?
There's still Class Dojo, and there's also the same ones that you'll get last year. If you did not get something from last year, you're new to your school, or you have a kinder, go ahead and call your school. The office managers have started and they can help you get set up. So call your specific school and ask them, and they'll help you get set up for your school. Make sure you have the right information.
So I'm so sorry, I've been replying in the chat, and so I hope I'm not about to repeat a question, and if so, just interrupt me, please, or we can answer it again. So I think this question, Sue, would be best answered by you. So with a kindergartner coming in with a different skill set than their peers, how do kindergarten teachers handle those differences of kind of the background that kids are walking in with as far as learning experiences?
You know, we have very talented kindergarten teachers. They've all been teaching for a long time. They are already prepared and thinking about this, and we will have not only the full class. Kindergarten teachers know that a kindergartner is not going to sit and stare and interact on a screen for 35 minutes. They absolutely know that. So there'll be small group experiences. They might start out everything with just small groups at small times. But they will also do, maybe they'll do a whole group lesson where they'll read a story or do a little bit of a lesson. Then they'll do some small groups so they can get some more one-on-one or a few kids at a time. We're going to have a small group reading lessons. And so your kids will be grouped according to interest or skills that they need or level. So they'll interact with the teacher and with that small group of kids with a virtual library. So they'll have opportunities to mix with their whole class virtually and then mix with small groups at their own level and get specific instruction.
A question around official tests like DIBELS. How will those be administered, or will they be administered this year?
That we're kind of working on because it's a little challenging to administer a test virtually because we don't know. It's uncomfortable for students and we don't know if we'll get the right answers. So we're in the process of working on how we're going to know. We do know that in the K2 in our reading program we're going to use that has the virtual books, that it has some online assessments, and we're going to learn about those soon. So there'll be a couple options in there for teachers and assistants to assess kids. So it might not be DIBELS, but it might be something similar that we can use with our new program that works better virtually. It's made for that. So.
The next, what grades use Canvas? So Canvas is grades 3 through 12. The next question, are we able to request that children are placed in a class together for virtual learning if you're coordinating with, taking turns doing something? And I would say, just saying it would be very helpful to have them in the same kind of virtual classroom. Sue, do you have an answer for requests to be together by school and by teacher?
If it's in your current, so if you're already in that school and they're already in that school and they're the same grade level, you can request it of the administrator in the building, but just know that when we go back to hybrid, our class size is going to be very small. We're very restricted because it's based on how many usable square feet we have per classroom. So we do understand that will be a challenge, and we will try and make it work the best we possibly can. And I'm sure that all the administrators are shaking their heads. Yes, we want to make it work for you.
Funny, I had just answered that, and I think we were pretty aligned. So there is a question about returning back to school, and you kind of talked about this, Sue. So when the kids move back to hybrid learning from the interactive learning that they're going to be having, right, from the virtual learning that they're going to be having, then all of a sudden square footage comes into play. And so where we might be able to have class sizes look a little bit different when we balance them out virtually, when we get back into school, it's going to completely depend on the square footage within the classroom. So you may see a little bit of change there, but our hope is to keep those as stable as possible so your child can continue with the same teacher. It's also a question about how confident are we about mid-October return date. I'm as confident as I can be. I am as confident as we are in our ability to wear masks and socially distance and practice good hygiene. Those are the three things that are going to get us into the classroom the fastest. I say it every time I get an opportunity, so I'm saying it again to you now. And the best we're able to do right now is that mid-October date, and we really want, more than anything, we want to be with kids back in schools. That's what we want to have happen. So we are just encouraging everybody to encourage each other to do your best, even when it's uncomfortable. Oh, some of the school supply lists have been posted at Target. You may have talked about this already, but school supply lists actually just were updated for elementaries and sent out today to the elementary principals. Is that right, Sue? Is that what I saw? Okay. And so you should be getting those from your principals within the next week. And those class supply lists are all the same across the schools by grade level. I believe what I was looking at was right. And, but they are different than what has been posted at Target or Fred Meyer, because they just have been using former years school supply lists. So you're going to see that the ones that you get from your school are going to look a little bit different. And, but whatever you've bought, if you've already bought, you're okay. It'll all be all right. Will there be a staff member from our home school if we have the interactive model? Oh, school staff. So you will still be attached to your home school. So even if you sign up for the hybrid model, which is going to be all virtual right now, or the K-12 interactive model, which is going to be online right now and then online when we go back, right? You will still have your neighborhood school as your home school. So you will still be in touch with the office staff from your home school. There may be some support staff that we have making calls and interacting with you that come from another school as well. The principal from Tangent Elementary is helping with the K-5 interactive program for us, which is fantastic. So we will have additional support staff, but you will also still hear from your home school. So you won't lose that connection that you have already formed.
Correct, but you might not have a teacher that's from your home school. You might have a teacher from a neighboring school.
Right. I think this question was particularly about office staff. Okay. Is that, yeah. Okay. But even the office staff, you may have a different office support staff person who will also reach out to you. How will communication with the teachers go about? Will there be multiple avenues? different levels of engagement with teachers on Class Dojo. And you talked a little bit about that in Canvas already. Email will still be available for teachers. So if you need to reach your teachers and aren't able to do so through Canvas or Class Dojo, just please go ahead and shoot them an email. So I didn't fully answer the question about opening on October 19th, and I don't mean to give it short shrift. The numbers generally are, we have a challenge with the numbers because we are both in Lynn County and we are in Benton County. And so when we look at numbers for Greater Albany, it's very different than Corvallis looking at numbers or Sweet Home looking at numbers, because both of those districts are only looking at a single county. What we have been seeing as we look at the numbers for COVID is that they will go up 1 week in Benton County, and then when they go down in Benton County, they go up in Lynn County. And so this inconsistency of the numbers, it has made it really, really difficult for us to well predict what is going to happen in the future. I'll say the latest Lynn County numbers were the highest numbers that we have seen when we're looking at both of the metrics. So one metric is the overall percentage of COVID cases, and the other is how many cases per 100,000 in the last week. And so we have the 5% is the cutoff for being able to have school in the percentage of cases. And in Lynn, we were at 4.7% this last week, which was much higher than Lynn County has been. I think we were in the 2% the week before. So that was a big change for us and surprised us. We also saw the numbers in Lynn County, just the numbers per 100,000 go up to, I think, 23.66.
It was 26.
Oh, 26, sorry, to 26. When you hit 30 per 100,000 and 5%, you cannot have students in school, period. You don't have any options. So similarly, we have seen Benton County go up higher in one of those two measures as well. And we are watching in Benton County to see what happens as the Oregon State students start coming back into Benton County and what decisions they're going to be making as far as social distancing and wearing masks and how successful they'll be there. So it really is difficult for us to predict. There's a question about whether some of our special education students may start earlier than October 19th. And Ryan, did you want to take that?
I mean, I think again, it comes down to if we can, we will, right? So if we can get kids in, we're going to get them in. We know that's the best way to get it done. So, but we're going to have a way to provide special ed services without needing kids to be in person too. So yes, the answer is hopefully, and I think there are some opportunities, at least on a limited basis, that special ed kids will be seeing the inside of buildings for at least some amount of time prior to that.
There's a great question about, will kids get to interact with each other as classmates virtually? And Sue can talk to you about that.
Yeah, actually, we as principal group practiced that yesterday. So they will be interacting with each other. They'll be interacting in the class. And then we have ways to virtually divide into small groups, do an activity, share it out with the big group. So we're practicing doing that ourselves before we get started. But your kids will be able to interact online either by talking or by writing together. They'll join back into big groups. So in our Google Meets this year, it will be interactive and it'll break you down into breakout groups. If you've used Zoom, it's kind of that same way, but we'll be using breakout groups. Kids can have a conversation. They will have assignments on what to talk about. We'll break out. The first, starting August 31st, teachers will be in training all day long for the first 2 weeks that they're back, learning how to do this and getting strategies to work with kids. And we have teachers and companies and everyone helping us. But the interactive online is actually very fun. We've been doing a lot with that.
All right, so we are now, I'm just going to do a time check. We're at 5:55. So we are at 5:57. We're going to close this session of the meeting because at 6 o'clock we have all the middle school parents coming in. So if you're a middle school parent, just stay on. Or if you want to watch what the middle school parents learn, you can stay on. But our team needs the opportunity for just a bio break before we go on with the middle schoolers. So a few more questions.
So I think the last two are, is school going to start the same time as last year or dependent on the teacher and their plans? We will have schedules for every grade that you know when students need to log on and or not. It won't be dependent by teacher or school. And then if we start the hybrid again and the metrics aren't met again, yes, so the state has metrics that says, okay, if you meet it, we can go in person. But if it goes in the opposite direction and we have more cases, will it be shut back down again? The answer is yes. And the metrics are pretty black and white with that. Will SEAs still support reading groups and other support? The answer is yes. And thank you so much. I think with that, I think we got through most of the questions. We will take a small break to transition to middle school. So David and Andrew, I know Andrew, our communications director, is on. We're just going to mute and turn our cameras off, run, get a drink of water, and run back, but we'll stay logged on to the same meeting.
Thank you guys so much. So appreciate you joining us. I also wanted to let you know that 3 weeks from now will be our next meeting, and the elementary meeting will be moved later. So you won't always be in that 5 o'clock slot. So in 3 weeks, we'll see you again. Thank you so much.